I can tell you on behalf of my colleagues across the Federation that our states have not been at this level of fiscal health in living memory. At the federal level, that physical expansion has enabled the government to embark on an infrastructure program of a scale and seriousness this country has never seen in any single administration in its history. Permit me also to walk you through the substance of it, because the substance matters more than the slogans. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, a 700-kilometer coastal corridor connecting 9 states from Lagos through to Cross River, is under active construction. The first 47 kilometers of Section 1 were temporarily opened to public traffic on the 12th of December 2025. The full stretch of Section 1 is scheduled for completion in the second quarter of 2026. And the entire 106-kilometer Section 1 and 2 are scheduled for completion by December of this year. The value of properties in Lekki and the Bay corridors has risen by 35% year on year as a direct benefit of the project. New tourism potentials, industrial expansions, residential developments are also being announced along the coastline at a pace that the Lagos state authorities are working hard to keep up with. Travel times have been reduced from 2 hours to 30 minutes on the operational stretch. The Sokoto-Badagry Superhighway, a 1,068-kilometer concrete paved corridor with a designed lifespan of 100 years, is in active construction across 7 states, from the Niger Republic border at Ilela in Sokoto, down through Kebbi, Niger, Kwara, Oyo, Ogun, and terminating at Badagry in Lagos. Section 2A, the longest stretch within Kebbi State, is at 40% completion. Site clearance, subsurface works, and 19 kilometers of completed concrete pavement with solar-powered street lights and CCTV surveillance are now in place. The House of Representatives of the National Assembly only recently approved a $516.3 million syndicated loan from Deutsche Bank with partial guarantee from Islamic Corporation for the insurance of investment and export credit. Just 2 weeks ago, counterpart funding from the federal government for land acquisition stands at 265.5 billion naira. This project was conceived 45 years ago during the administration of President Shehu Shagari. It took a president with the resources and the political will to make it real. I should share with you a small detail because numbers can sometimes lose their meaning in a room of professionals who deal with them every day. A few days ago, a video circulated on Nigerian social media space in which a farmer described in his own voice the difference one of these new highway sections, the difference it brought to his life. Before the road was reconstructed, transporting his farm produce to market took him 40 minutes over a route that punished his vehicle and his goods in equal measure. After the reconstruction of the road, the same journey now takes him under 10 minutes. He spoke about the saved fuel, the saved repair cost, the goods that arrived at the market in better condition, and what all of that meant for his family's income at the end of the week. That is what infrastructure looks like at the human level. Multiply that farmer by the millions along these corridors, and you will begin to see what the freed resources are actually doing in Nigeria. Beyond these 2 flagship corridors, there are over 440 ongoing road projects nationwide and more than 2,700 kilometers of superhighway construction across the country. The East-West Road, abandoned and resuscitated by every administration for 2 decades, is finally being completed under this government. Rail modernization projects are consolidating. Port process digitization is improving trade facilitation timelines. The Lagos and Tinkan Island port complexes are receiving a £746 million refurbishment under the financing agreement signed during the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit to the United Kingdom in March. And this is the first state visit by a Nigerian leader to UK in 37 years. At the state level, the same physical expansion has changed what the governors can attempt. Some states have used the additional federation revenue to invest in state-owned power generation infrastructure. Not only that they generate power, they transmit and distribute. Many states have embarked on massive road construction, youth engagement schemes, and are able to pay minimum wage to workers. None of that would have been possible at the resource level that prevailed before May 2023. Today, visible infrastructure development can be seen in different forms and at different paces. In states across the Federation, the federal courage triggered the subnational ambition. Let me turn now to the Naira float, because I know this room understands its significance more directly than perhaps any other audience in Nigeria. For decades, this country operated multiple parallel exchange rates: an official rate, a wholesale interbank rate, a borrowed change rate, and a parallel market rate. The arbitrage opportunities between those rates were not accidental. They were a system where connected operators obtained dollars at the official rate for fictitious purposes and sold the same dollars on the parallel market at multiples of what they paid. Genuine importers, genuine students seeking for school fees abroad, and genuine medical patients seeking treatment overseas found themselves competing in a market whose pricing was set by rent seekers. These rent seekers had access to official window. The central bank, complicit by inaction or by structure, printed money to defend a fiction. The Naira's stated value bore no resemblance to its real value. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu unified the foreign exchange market. The first months were difficult, of course. The Naira found its true value, and that value was lower than the political fiction had been. Inflation rose as predicted as the currency settled. Critics within the country and abroad announced that the experiment had failed. The administration held the line, and what has emerged by the early part of 2026 is something this country has never had in any of its living memories. Foreign reserve stood at $32 billion in mid-2024. As of the end of March 2026, gross reserves stand at $49.4 billion. The central bank governor, Olayemi Cardoso, has confirmed that this represents 13 months of import cover, well above international benchmarks, and far above the B-rating median of 4.3 months. The Naira closed at 1,374 to US dollar in the Nigerian foreign exchange market, having appreciated marginally over the month. The premium between the official rate and the parallel rate, which once exceeded 30%, is now under 2%, as we have noticed. So diaspora remittances that hovered around $200 million per month in 2023 now average $600 million per month, with the central bank targeting $1 billion per month by the end of this year. So foreign exchange market liquidity reached $10 billion in April 2026. This administration has cleared over $10 billion in foreign exchange liabilities and has secured over $50 billion in foreign exchange direct investment commitments. Fitch upgraded Nigeria's long-term issuer default rating from B- to B and revised the outlook to stable in April of last year. Moody's followed with an upgrade to B3. The Naira-denominated stock market, the Nigerian exchange, all-share index closed April 2026 at 242,777 points, up by 55.7% up to date, with total market capitalization crossing 155 trillion naira for the first time in history. On the 29th of April alone, the market posted its largest single-day point gain in history. For this audience in particular, I want to draw out what the Naira float has done for predictability. An investor coming into Nigeria today can build a financial model that holds stability. A multinational planning regional headquarters in Lagos or Abuja is no longer asked to bet on which exchange rate will he enforce when the time comes to repatriate his incomes and earnings. A development partner planning a multi-year program can budget in Naira and dollar terms with confidence. The chaos that used to make Nigeria's microeconomic indicators effectively fictitious has been retired. That is the gift of the float. It is the prerequisite for serious capital, and Nigeria is now ready for serious capital. Only last week, Zenith Bank has opened another branch in Manchester with the capacity to create direct jobs. Fidelity Bank has acquired the rebranded Union Bank UK as Fit Bank UK. FCMB has selected London as its first international destination for its digital cross-border payments platform. These are the kinds of moves that follow from an environment where exchange rates mean what they say and say what they mean. I want to address the global context now, because I know your governments have been watching how Nigeria, as one of the larger economies on the continent, is absorbing the shocks of the past few months. Recent conflicts in the Gulf and Middle East and the closure and blockade of the Strait of Hormuz that followed have placed considerable pressure on global oil prices and shipping costs. Inflation has risen across most major economies. Currency volatility has been the rule rather than the exception in emerging markets. The IMF revised Nigeria's 2026 growth forecast down by 0.3% points in its April spring meetings, citing war-related fuel and fertilizer pressures. The UNDP forecast double-digit inflation for Nigeria, for Egypt, for Ethiopia, and Angola through the rest of the year as conflicts spill over will compound domestic pressures. Nigeria has held up well under these conditions. Headline inflation, which peaked above 27% at the start of this administration, declined steadily through 11 consecutive months of disinflation, reaching 15.06% in February of this year, the lowest level since November 2020. The March print rose marginally to 15.38%, ending the disinflation streak as the Hormuz disruption fed into domestic fuel and transport costs. The April print due in the coming days will be a further test. But the central point is that Nigeria entered a period of major external shock with a stable foreign exchange architecture, healthy reserves, and an inflation trajectory that had already been bent downwards. We are absorbing the shock with the microeconomic shocks observers that this administration's reform put in place. That is the test of a stable economic architecture. And so far, we are passing the test. The real GDP growth tells the same story. The economy expanded by 4.07% in the fourth quarter of 2025. The second quarter in a decade, excluding the post-pandemic rebound, and that quarterly growth has surpassed the 4% threshold. The full year 2025 closed at 3.87%, improving on 3.38% the year before. The Nigerian economy is now valued at 441.5 trillion naira, up from 372.8 trillion in 2024. The International Monetary Fund projects 4.1% growth for 2026, even after its Iran-related revision. The Q4 2025 growth was driven by all three major sectors: agriculture at 4.0%, industry and services. Crude oil production averaged 1.58 million barrels per day in Q4 2025. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission reported total production of 1.546 million barrels per day for March 2026, up by 4.2% from February, with peaks reaching 1.8 million barrels. The government and well-intentioned processes for managing leakages in the oil production programs. Let me now take you through the freed resources as they have been deployed into the sectors that touch citizens directly. I will be brisk but specific. In education, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, established under the Student Loan Access to Higher Education Act 2024, has now disbursed 242.4 billion naira to 1,388,000 students across 288 tertiary institutions. Of that total, 157.4 billion naira was paid directly to institutions as tuition fees, and 84.9 billion naira was paid as upkeep allowances directly to students' bank accounts. The scheme has now received over 1.77 million applications. These loans are interest-free as a result of the freed revenue. Repayments commences 2 years after graduation and on completion of the National Youth Service Program. Industrial action in the higher education sector, which used to consume entire academic years, has effectively been retired under this administration. The retirement age for medical professionals now has been extended from 60 to 65 years to address the migration of clinical staff. Several states have already domesticated this policy. But beyond all these reforms, the most robust reform and the sanity that was brought into the revenue community is the tax policy. The 4 Tax Reform Acts signed in June 2025, which took effect on the 1st of January of this year. The reforms consolidate over 60 disparate taxes into fewer than 10 statutes. Every Nigerian worker earning 800,000 naira or less annually is exempt from personal income tax entirely. Workers earning the federal minimum wage of 70,000 naira pay no income tax at all. Small businesses with turnover below 100 million naira and fixed assets below 250 million naira are fully exempt from corporate income tax. Capital gains tax and the new 4% development levy. Companies that hire new workers receive a 50% additional deduction on those salaries for 3 years. Companies that raise wages for their lowest paid employees receive a further 50% deduction. Agricultural enterprises enjoy a 5-year corporate tax holiday. VAT remains at 7.5% in Nigeria, one of the lowest rates in Africa. With basic food, education, healthcare, and transport zero rated. Multinationals with annual turnover above 50 billion naira or 750 million euros face a minimum effective tax rate of 15%, aligned with their global tax framework. In the digital economy, Nigerians consumed 4.06 million terabytes of internet data in the first quarter of 2026 alone, a new quarterly record. Nigeria's digital economy revenue is projected to reach $18.3 billion by the end of this year, up from $9.97 billion in 2021. So the country leads Africa in startup investments and hosts 5 unicorns. You have companies like InterSwitch, Flutterwave, Opay, Andela, and MoneyPoint. Internet penetration reached 107 million users in early 2025. Nigeria is the home to 8 active submarine cables, providing over 40 terabytes per second of international connectivity. The telecommunication industry has committed to 12,000 site upgrades in 2026, with one major operator alone investing over $1 billion in network expansion this year. Nigeria is leading West Africa in data center capacity. The passport renewal process, for years, a notorious choke point of harassment and informal payments, has been digitized and decentralized. Diaspora Nigerians and Nigerians at home alike can now apply for and receive their passports without the friction that defined that process for decades. In security, the administration has taken decisions that previous governments postponed. The president has formally declared a security emergency and directed the police and the armed forces to recruit additional personnel. The State Police Constitution Alteration Bill is among the 44 harmonized bills currently before the National Assembly, and the Senate leadership has committed to concluding the constitutional amendment process within the year. The Inspector General of Police has inaugurated a committee to design a workable framework for state policing. Intelligence cooperation has been expanded with international partners. The joint operation conducted with the United States of America against the ISIS-affiliated terrorist enclave in Sokoto State on Christmas Day of 2025 represents a level of practical international security cooperation that should be encouraged and be encouraging too by all governments that are within our region. The list of sponsors of terrorism has been published. The security architecture is being restructured for better synergy and more efficient command and control in place. This work is not finished, and I will not pretend otherwise. Indeed, security can no longer be treated as routine, but the direction is correct and it is being pursued with sustained seriousness. I want to briefly mention several other areas which I consider worthy of your attention. In oil and gas, the Dangote refinery, with a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, is now fully operational. Several other private-owned large refineries are under construction in different parts of the country. Nigeria refined PMS domestically for the first time in 4 decades in 2025. The country has now established itself as a notable continental exporter of aviation fuel. Non-oil exports for the first half of 2025 reached a record $3.2 billion and are set to rise further this year. Nigeria recorded a trade surplus for 5 consecutive quarters through Q4 2025, with non-oil exports now representing 48% of total exports. In agriculture, the sector grew by 4% in Q4 2025, up significantly from 2.54% in the same quarter of 2024, reflecting improved security in food-producing regions. Year-on-year food inflation declined from 25.2% in March 2025 to 14.3% in March 2026. I will address one final matter briefly because it is part of the landscape your governments are reading. Reform produces political opposition. That is the nature of democratic systems. When entrenched interests are disrupted, those who were benefiting from the prior arrangements do not retire quietly. They contest. They mount narrative campaigns. They predict failure with a favor proportional to what they have lost. Some of what your governments will read about Nigeria in the coming months will reflect that contestations, more than It reflects the underlying data. I will simply ask you to weigh the noise against the verifiable record and to trust your own attachee's assessment over what circulates in the more excitable corners of social media. The administration is not asking you to take its word. The data is in the public domain. The IMF is doing its work. The World Bank is doing its work. Fitch and Moody's are doing theirs. The investors are voting with their capital. And they have voted up 55% on the Nigerian stock market in less than 5 months. We are content to be judged by outcomes. I want to close with what I think is most useful proposition I can offer this audience. The Renewed Hope agenda is not a campaign slogan. It is a coherent policy framework anchored in the foundational reforms I have described and extending into infrastructure, social investment, security cooperation, and institutional repair. Your governments and your investors have an opportunity in the period ahead to align with that framework in ways that will produce outsized returns. Where you are funding development programs, the structural reforms have made those programs more durable. Where you are facilitating private investment, the macro stability has made that investment more bankable. Where you are pursuing security cooperation, the political will at the highest level is now consistent with operational delivery. The Nigeria-UK strategic partnership, formalized during the President's recent visit to the United Kingdom, is the kind of framework other capitals should be considering. The conditions for entering into such partnership with Nigeria have not been this favorable in decades. As the Director General of the Renewed Hope Ambassadors and the Chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, I have made it my work to explain this trajectory wherever I can be heard and ensure what is being achieved at the federal level is matched by serious delivery at the subnational level. The two streams of works are converging and the country is benefiting from it. Permit me to leave you with one final observation. A country that has absorbed an external shock of the magnitude caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and continues to grow at 4% with external reserves at above $48 billion US. A stock market that has risen by as much as 55% since January. A country that has supported over 1 million students through interest-free loans with major infrastructure corridors under active construction across multiple geopolitical zones, with a tax system that has just exempted the bottom of the income distribution entirely, and with a state police framework moving through legislative consolidation, is a country that is not merely surviving its reforms period, it is moving through it. And what comes out on that other side will be a Nigeria more competent, more competitive, and more credible than the one any of you has ever known. I thank you for the courtesy of your attention. But I want you to understand that we are passing through turbulent waters. But very soon, the aircraft will be stable, the weather will be clear, and we will unfasten our seatbelts. May God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, the Governor of Imo State, distinguished Senator Hope Uzodimma, for that very, very inspiring and assuring words from you.
Senator Hope Uzodimma, Chairman of the occasion, Governor of Imo State, Your Excellencies, Mr. Governors, Deputy Governors, Your Excellency, Honorable Minister Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, and Honorable Minister of State Doris Usoka Anite, distinguished officials, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues from the diplomatic community, representatives of the media, I would like first to express on behalf, I think, of all our colleagues from the diplomatic community, our deep appreciation for this kind invitation to this very interesting interactive session between the Progressive Governors Forum and the diplomatic community. I think that all international partners always try, and this is what we try to do at the level of the European Union, to align their projects with the federal government strategy, with the renewed hope agenda, in this case, of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But state governors are also, for us, key partners, and we always try also to work very closely with them, whatever, of course, their political affiliation, and in coordination with the federal government. And so this meeting today has a particular relevance for all of us. And also because governors are political actors closer to the people. And when it comes to address challenges so complex as insecurity, poverty and humanitarian needs, power supply, women and girls empowerment, and so many more, they are closer to these issues and can sometimes provide more efficient responses. And also, when it comes to boosting the promising economic development that we have observed in the last few years in Nigeria at federal and state levels. And I would like to thank Senator Hope, Governor Hope Udozimma, for his very interesting and exhausting briefings about the reforms and achievements of this administration over the last few years. And when it comes to trade and investment, this is also a priority for all embassies here represented. And we see in Nigeria a country of opportunity. Governors are also key political stakeholders and the expression of the lively democratic life in Nigeria. And of course, we will all follow with great interest the upcoming elections in early 2027 at federal level, but also at state level, including for many governors' positions. And as Honourable Minister Abubakar Bagudu mentioned the exchange we had a few weeks ago with our member states' ambassadors on the upcoming elections, I would like to see the opportunity to thank you.
On behalf of my colleagues from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which the Philippines is currently chairing, I would like to convey our profound gratitude to the Chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum and also the Director General of the Renewed Hope Ambassadors for inviting us to this forum. Indeed, this forum is very relevant as it is timely, a platform where we can discuss and exchange ideas, how we can continue working together with Nigeria as partners towards achieving shared goals against the backdrop of the prevailing global environment. In ASEAN, which is many hours removed from Africa, we are very cognizant of the intense efforts and the tangible positive outcomes of the government of Nigeria under the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, under his renewed hope agenda. We are committed to work with Nigeria in its pursuit for sustainable development, peace, and prosperity. So on this note, again, I would like to congratulate and thank the Progressive Governors Forum, and congratulations to you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and we look forward to our continued engagement in the future for mutual benefit of Nigeria and our own respective countries.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for that kind.
I'd rather congratulate you than to hate you. I see you winning, I'm winning. We all are winning for life.
Your Excellency Hope Uzodimma, Executive Governor of Imo State, Chairman Progressive Governors Forum, and Director General of Renew Hope Ambassadors, ministers here present, but I would like to also recognize my friend, the Deputy Governor of Delta State, who is here with us, representing the Governor of Delta State, ministers here present, our friends from the diplomatic community, development partners, Renew Hope directors who are with us here, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude the first session of this important engagement, I wish to sincerely appreciate your presence, your thoughtful interventions, and your continued commitment to partnership with Nigeria. I particularly acknowledge my colleagues in the Progressive Governors Forum, the Honorable Ministers of Budget and Economic Planning, as well as other ministers here with us, and our esteemed guests from the diplomatic corps and development institutions. Your participation today reflects our shared dedication to democratic stability, sustainable development, and inclusive prosperity. Under the purposeful leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, JCFR, Nigeria remains steadfast in advancing democratic governance, deepening economic reforms, strengthening institutions, and creating a more enabling environment for investment and enterprise. The Renew Hope agenda continues to empower subnational governments to pursue transformative policies that expand economic opportunity, strengthen social inclusion, and improve infrastructure and enhance security cooperation. Across our states, we are committed to building resilient economies that delivering measurable progress that improves the lives of our citizens, particularly our young people and vulnerable communities. We recognize a sustainable development that can only flourish through collaboration, mutual trust, and shared responsibility. It is in this spirit that we deeply value the support, confidence, and engagement of the international community. We look forward to translating today's conversation into enduring partnership and practical outcomes that will strengthen democratic governance and accelerate development across Nigeria. I'm happy today that you can all see, when we came in, just like the chairman of the Nigerian Progressive Governors Forum have just said, many governors whom some of them you have interacted with them, associated with them, have since decamped to our party. The only reason for that is simply because of the reforms under the able leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who have bring stability, improve the level of security, and create economic prosperity for our people, not only within the cities, but in our rural communities in Nigeria. And that is why I'm also happy that we can see the level of commitment by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in trying to partner with countries globally. Today, he's in Kenya, doing what he has been doing since he became the president of Nigeria. And I'm happy to say that we can see the confidence has improved. The level of collaboration between Nigeria and countries globally, both Africa, Europe, America, and other parts of the world have improved. And I have no doubt in my mind, this interaction today will cement that relationship, advance that relationship, and come up with some very important outcomes that will strengthen the relationship between Nigeria and international community. I thank you once again for honoring this invitation, and I wish you fruitful deliberation and safe travels back to your destination. Thank you very much.